Welcome back to another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Richard Thompson. Today, I'm joined by Mia Shilkin, founder of Mia Casa Strategy and a property investment strategist with nearly 2 decades of experience helping Australians build wealth with purpose and clarity. Mia's journey is incredible, from working in drug and alcohol counselling to navigating the high-pressure world of real estate, to ultimately building a business grounded in ethics, strategy, and genuine care for people. Whether you're thinking about your first investment, navigating uncertainty, or simply trying to create more choice in your life, this conversation is absolutely for you. All right, let's get into it. Mia Shilkin, welcome to the show.
Richard Thompson, lovely to be here.
You are from Mia Casa
I am.
Strategy, and you are dedicated your last 15 years to the property sector. Tell me about how that started. What's your origin story?
I'll tell you a little secret. It's actually 18.
18 years.
Mm-hmm. Good skincare, no kids. Originally, I was in real estate for a few years as an agent before I moved into working with investors, but it was less of an aha moment and more of like an aha experience that I had when I was looking to buy my first property many, many years ago. And the experience that I had with the agent at the time was really, really positive, and I really enjoyed it. I'd been searching for property. My dad and my stepmom were helping me, but they happened to be out of touch at the time. They were in the Paronga Ups, which is in Western Australia, no phone signal. And of course, I found the property while they were away and I couldn't ask for guidance. So this amazing real estate agent helped me so much, and I had such a great experience that it stuck with me and sort of, I guess, directed me to this pathway later on in life. But my background is actually, I grew up in Western Australia, come from a family where my dad was a tanner. Both
Russian heritage.
Russian heritage.
Yes.
Actually, if we want to get really spicy, it's Russian Jewish heritage.
Okay. It is spicy.
So we've got all of the culture and all of the fun stuff happening here. But yeah, so I grew up in a family in Western Australia, very close family, very involved with our community, the Jewish community and the community at large. My mum is still very involved in the community there, and did all the normal things, went to school, grew up, wanted to be a vet, realised that would involve animals dying, and decided that wasn't for me. I just wanted that vet job where all the animals live, and I don't think they've created that yet. No, and
it's a pet store, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly. It's a pet store, sorry. Yeah. And I don't want to work in one of them because I just take them all home. So I actually got into drug and alcohol counselling when I left school after I'd studied. And I did that for a significant period of time. And I really, really enjoyed it. When I look back on that time, I feel that it was a really great place for me. But what I also found was it was somewhat of a revolving door. We weren't equipped to deal with the level of, I guess, drug abuse and issues that were around in the society then. I was still quite young.
Are you saying the turnover of the staff?
No, the depth of the issues of the clients.
Right.
And the lack of education outside where we were working. So we had young people coming to us who were going through their parents' drawers and cars and things, and that's how they were getting access to what they shouldn't have been taking. So it's very hard to work in that framework when you really have to start the generation above, or maybe the generation above.
Sure.
But what I was on the coalface with were young people who had parents in those positions, and I was only seeing them a couple of hours a week. So it did become a revolving door where they were coming back all the time with new issues, but, it wasn't a fulfilling job in terms of success. And really for me, I wanted to help people who wanted to help themselves, and I really wanted to have like a marked sign of achievement, Someone just being alive and coming back every week for their sessions is great, but it's not a successful achievement. It's just the baseline, really. And then I remember a girlfriend coming over one day and saying to me, I made $3,000 this week. And I thought, what on earth were you doing? And is it legal? Because this was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And she'd been working in a call centre. And I was, at that point, the movie Jackass had come out. Lots of those young people thought this was the best thing they'd ever seen. They were doing all the tricks, holding onto cars at lights, getting run over. Self-harming had become quite prevalent then as well. Lots of the young women were slicing their skin, necks, wrists, legs, exposed skin. So it was kind of all this new territory none of the resources to help. And I was only a few years older than some of these young people because of my age and getting into the industry really early. So at that point, I thought I need a little bit of a break, and I went and worked with my friend in this abominable call centre in Perth.
Did you get to make $3,000 a week?
I made a lot more than that because I was used to dealing with helping people and hearing them. So it was just this transition from life-threatening face-to-face to, I had people telling me I'm about to leave my husband and all this sort of stuff on the phone because I just sort of transferred my communication skills from counselling to just being on the phone. I was working in a call centre for Telstra. We were just selling broadband.
Right.
It wasn't anything major, but just the conversations I was having with some of these people.
But your ability to communicate and converse.
Yeah.
Tonality.
And I thank my parents for that because we didn't have a TV. We had lots of books.
Okay. Yeah, fair play.
Yeah. The idiot box is.
Yes, that was our generation, I think.
Absolutely.
When you talked about the time that you bought the property in WA, was that just for your first house?
Yeah.
And that was just purely just finding a place to live?
It was just finding somewhere to live. I'd been renting share housing since I'd been out of home. I was out of home very early. I left at 17. That's somewhat of a controversial subject. My mother says I chose to leave. I say that I didn't. She said, don't go to this party on the weekend. I went anyway, and the rest is history.
Right.
My mum had read a parenting book where if you put down an ultimatum, thank you, you had to hold to it. So yeah, I'd already purchased that property prior to getting into all this sort of work. I was working as a youth worker on like $14 an hour when I bought this first property, and I remember thinking I'm never going to pay it off. It was $147,000 for the entire place, Richard. The entire place, including land. Yeah. So, yeah.
When did the cogs start to turn to go, well, property in itself is probably a good place to start investing in?
It was after I bought my first investment, so the second property.
Okay.
And I had a very different experience at that time. My first experience was really, really inspiring. And I think the agent had gone to school with my dad as well. And he recognised my surname and asked me if I knew my dad. And I do. And so he really looked after me and really helped me. And then I had this second experience where it was horrendous. And during that time, I was starting to feel like I really like helping people. I really like property. I love design. I love architecture. Coming from, near Fremantle in Western Australia, there's so many beautiful heritage buildings. And I thought real estate was about helping people. And so I left the call centre that was very short-lived anyway. And I became a real estate agent and realised that it was the complete opposite of what I had thought it was about. And I lasted 3 years. I actually became quite unwell and had to have surgery to remove a tumour that had grown.
What was wrong with the industry at that stage?
The industry.
What caused you to be sick to it, do you think?
I was completely out of alignment with who I was and how I operate.
Your purpose.
My purpose, my ethics, my values, and what I was being asked to do. I had a particular experience with this lovely lady she was actually buying a house on the street that I lived on. It was a long street, so she didn't know. I was driving past her house every single day, and I went through the whole process with her, and she'd left a domestic violence relationship. She was a single mum. I was helping her with this. The sellers of the house were really happy. Everyone was really happy. And then I get a phone call one day from somebody who worked with me who was in a position of power who said, if they don't ask for a pest and building inspection when they're filling out the offer on this property, don't remind them. So for those that don't know, the agent selling the house obviously works for the seller, but I'm there in the capacity to facilitate the sale by assisting the buyer. But I don't work for them. But quite often, especially in those sorts of circumstances, the buyer really relies on the agents for guidance. That wasn't okay with me. I'd had a very interesting conversation with her dad a week or so before where he'd remarked on my surname and said to me, do you, again, know this person who turns out my dad's been busy. And he said to me, my first job, and he would have been in his 60s at the time, my first job was at your grandfather's tannery. And I was 16 years old. I had my first ever asthma attack, and your dad drove me through red lights in his old whatever fancy car, Ford or whatever it was that Dad had back in the day, through all the traffic lights to Fremantle Hospital, and he saved my life. And then I'm being asked to rip these people off 2 weeks later by not alerting them to the fact that obviously whoever was ringing me had thought there might be an issue. It would hold up the transaction and it would slow things down. Needless to say, of course, they put those things on the contract. But that was a pivotal moment for me because I just realised I was in the wrong place with the wrong people. And then shortly after that, I discovered that I'd had an unpleasant growth, had it removed. And a friend of mine said, I've met somebody has that same Mother Teresa attitude that you do towards property and helping people and everything, and you need to meet him. And I said, nope, I'm done with real estate. Don't know what I'm doing, but I'm never doing it again. And in the end, I did actually meet with this particular person who went on to be my boss for the next 9 years.
Wow.
So it was a great meeting. It was a great fork in the road for me. And that was where I learned to work simply with property strategy, not with the manipulation of real estate.
Hey guys, just popping in quickly to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, it would mean a lot if you take a second to follow the show, leave a like or review, and share it with a friend. That support genuinely helps us grow and keep bringing you more great conversations every single week. All right, let's get back into it. What intersection caused you to start Mia Casa and your business now, working for yourself?
I decided years into working for that firm, they dealt with new build property only.
Right.
And I had clients that were coming back time and time again, and I could see that there was scope and need for multiple assets within someone's portfolio, not just what was convenient because that's what they're expert in. And that's what I've kind of found across the board is that people often will present the option that they're most comfortable with, which is not necessarily the option that is best for the client. So I went off to do some study, and it was actually at that time that my boss realised, or he says he realised I wasn't going to stay at the company because I started to learn about things that they weren't interested in sharing with the clients. And he said to me, I knew you were leaving then. And I said, why didn't you say something? He goes, because I want you to be happy. I want you to go and do what makes you happy. So, so I learned more about established property. I learned about all those sorts of different asset classes. I worked with the National Disability Insurance Scheme, a specialist disability accommodation, all of those different things, got a lot of experience. But I then did go to work for somebody else after that because I realised as much as I wanted to offer all these options to my clients, I didn't want my own business. That's not for me. I just wanted to, get great results for my clients and just, have colleagues to chat to and do all that sort of thing. But what I had to do was weigh up the costs of that, and the costs were that I wasn't in alignment with how I wanted to be working. So when I left there, I went and worked with someone else, and that was only 5 months. And there was a conversation that we had at one point where they said to me, we want you to swap the rental appraisal from this property to this property. And I said, but they don't match because that's in a different part of that area and that won't get that rental appraisal. That actually won't achieve it. And he said, but I want you to move that property first, and I'm your boss and I'm telling you to do that. And I said, well, I guess you're not my boss anymore. And that is how Mia Casa came about, because I still really wanted to help people, but I wanted to do it the right way.
In line with your
Absolutely.
values,
And Spanish/Italian Mi Casa or Mia Casa is my house. My surname is not Casa. Thank you to the 47 people who have asked me if it is.
Can you change it? No.
Yeah, right.
Middle name Casa.
Branding, on brand.
That's right.
Mum, Dad, I've got news. I'm no longer a Shilkin, I'm a house. That's how it happened.
I'm really lucky to have you here because you're a thought leader in this space with that experience as well. And there's been it's been in the media, let's say, last couple of weeks since the budget, and how, particularly about investing.
Yes.
And the like. So to kick things off, people listening who may have their own home, when is a good time? What is the strategy thought? What is the mindset of someone wanting to start in the property game and to acquire an investment property?
That is a really great question. And I'm actually really impressed and pleased that you started with the concept of mindset, because it's literally their mindset. So many people go in there not thinking about that and thinking about the money, thinking about the location, thinking about what they want to buy, and they're not educated and they don't realize that even buying a well-priced bad asset, it's still a bad asset. It's just got a better price than a higher priced bad asset. So I don't think people do their research, that they don't think about the chain of events that they need before they're actually ready to buy the property. And
So what are they?
Well, it's not about the property. It's about why you want it. What's your exit strategy? Why are you buying it? What's it going to do? What are you hoping it's going to add or manage in your already existing financial ecosystem? So they need to know why they're doing it first. Not just my next door neighbours or my brother or my cousin have bought an investment property and we're hearing about it, because statistically there are like only a few people that buy a second investment property after they bought their first within Australia. We have a higher percentage of people who own one investment property and a much, 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 much lower percentage, which to me, from my experience, shows that people are buying without having that mindset and the education. It gets tough. They buy in the wrong place. They buy for the wrong reasons. They haven't thought about their annual costs, because it's not just about buying the house. It's about the ongoing maintenance, about, you've got people living there. You need to repair things if something happens, the same way as you would in your own home.
What's your view? I guess you're obviously property skewed. You would think that invariably people want to invest in property to build their wealth.
Yes.
You'd have to think that's a baseline position. Why property as against any other asset class?
I don't believe that property is the only asset class that we should be investing in. It's just the one that I'm the most experienced with and that I've had the most success with and I know the most about. So I feel comfortable in that niche. All my clients see a financial planner who's independent, and all of them get advice on a whole range of different investments. I have colleagues in their own businesses that work with crypto. I have people who work in the share market, in other asset classes. So my clients always get a full, broad spectrum view on their investing. But in terms of the property side of it, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and your property has completely disappeared and you don't have a copy of it on your hard drive, right?
Yeah.
So that is one of those things. As much as there is a risk element in property, it's a lower risk than some of the other kind of investments. I've got a friend who got on a plane, hadn't communicated with his stockbroker accurately, got off a plane, had lost $1 million because there was a crash and he hadn't given an order that said that they could sell.
Yeah, there's no ticker. There's no daily ticker telling you there's been 3% drop in your property today, overnight. Or
absolutely.
That definitely, and I guess because of the high cost and high effort to get in and out of the property market, it probably helps the trigger happy people to go, well, I can't just instantly sell this.
Yeah.
So I need to park it. And that almost forces you to stay in the market, or to at least, you can't just pull out.
Fear is a big one as well.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because I imagine any investment decision that you can't have the risk without the reward.
That's exactly right.
So there has to be a risk component to it. Otherwise, you just put it in a term deposit.
Yeah.
But that's the mindset piece. Where do you find with your clients? How do you work with your clients to get them over that hurdle? Yeah.
Well, the first thing is working out what they actually need. And sometimes what they need and what they want are the same things, but sometimes they're not. So it's about working with them so that we can actually get a clear plan and they're on board with, yes, this is what we thought we were going to be doing, but now we've looked at the figures, we've looked at our lifestyle, we've looked at our goals, we've looked at our plans, and we can actually see that that was a great strategy for someone who has a different life to us. So it is about, first off, making sure that we get a really accurate, holistic picture of where they're at and what their plans are. And that means things like if they're having more children or all that sort of stuff. And I have many clients, and in fact, I'm thinking of a beautiful couple right now that came to me and they were like, we need to get into the market now. We need to get into market now. It took them a year before they can get into the market because they had so many things they had needed to sort out first. And they did get discouraged and they were like, is this ever going to happen? But there was, a university debt that needed to be assessed, and there was all sorts of other components that needed to be done. And then there were other conversations, and, they got the most fantastic property in the end, and it was perfect timing. So it is about having that little bit of faith, but it's also about you don't go into any major decision in life without getting help or training or whatever it happens to be. You know, people don't just wake up one day and become an Olympian. There's coaches and there's goals and there's strategies and there's training, and property is very similar, and it's about working out first of all what it is that you're trying to achieve from it, and then reverse engineering from there. So yes, you want a property before the end of June so that you can do whatever you need to do, but that might not actually be the best strategy for you. We might need to, there are other boxes that might need to be ticked. I've had clients that will wait a certain period of time and then they can actually buy a property several $100,000 more than they were able to because of things have changed in that period of time.
Is the position that you need to understand what your life looks like at odds with the property investment strategy if there's a little bit of uncertainty? So if you've got, because it is so demanding to get in or get out, and I'd imagine there's everyone's got uncertainty in their life as well.
There are levels of it though.
Yeah.
And if your marriage is rocky, now is not the time to be buying an investment property together.
Or if you're about to have kids,
combining self-managed super funds together, all those sorts of things. Is somebody about to take a break from work? And absolutely having children, because lenders take that as you having more financial responsibility and less income. So that changes your borrowing capacity and what you can afford. You don't need to know the next 50 years of what you're doing. There are ways that we can chart what the property might be doing, but your life is okay to be changeable. We just need to set something up that allows you to make your choices and decisions regardless of what they might be. So you do have that flexibility if you need to leave your job. You do have that flexibility if you want to travel, that sort of thing. But yeah, those are the sorts of things that we first discuss before we start even looking at, location and what kind of property.
US commentator, very right-wing, Dave Ramsey, he is all about not investing until you've paid off your first home.
Oh.
How does leverage sit? And
Okay.
how is that conversation? How do you have that conversation with your clients? Because if you've got your first home and that home is increased in value, you have equity.
You do.
That you can then go to the bank and say, well, this house was once worth 500, it's now worth 750. I've got some movement here. But you've got to borrow against that.
You do.
And as against paying down your mortgage to zero and then starting to save for another investment property.
Yeah.
But how does leverage sit with you in terms of the overall strategy, and how can you have your clients allow that to make it work?
Well, nobody asks me for my opinion on these things usually. Dave gets asked all the time, which is probably good because I don't agree with him. I actually think that it's a great idea to pay down your home. There are obviously different caveats attached to that about what you do with the loan at the end, whether you close it, and that's a very personal and specific advice piece that is not something that I could give general advice on. But the leverage piece, absolutely. If you look at how long it takes some people to pay down their first home and how much more equity they could have accrued from that other property, for me, the numbers have to obviously line up, but it doesn't make financial sense. They give you 30 years to pay off this home. Are you not going to buy anything for 30 years, or are you going to, whereas in the meantime, that equity that you spoke about in your example, that's called lazy equity because it's not doing anything. That 250,000 or even more with the way that prices are going in the market in Australia at the moment, just sitting there, you're not benefiting from it. Nobody's benefiting from it except the bank with you paying your payments, whenever they're due. But with the right structure and the right strategy and the right timeline, you can actually leverage that equity and your home. Because the other thing is there's nothing useful about the debt on your home. But on investment property and certain types of investment properties offer you different benefits that your own home doesn't. So short answer, no. I think that you could get in much earlier, and I think it's a shame to wait until you've paid down a home. The other thing is that quite often people are buying their first home, and even though it might not be their forever home, they want the multiple bedrooms and the bathrooms and the pool and the this and the that. So we're not talking a $300,000 or a $600,000 property. We're talking a lot more. So you've got to pay down that beautiful home, huge mortgage before you can even look at investing and then, putting those steps towards your actual financial goals. It's about appetite as well though, Richard. So it's about a client's appetite for not risk in terms of the fact that we're making risky decisions, but they've got to actually make decisions. And that can be really stressful, and that fear component that we spoke about. So sometimes people will actually revert back to that advice of just paying off your first home. They don't want to owe anything to anyone. They don't want any of that sort of thing. And they're not looking at the bigger picture. And in, that time that they've been paying off that property, they could actually have been utilising without, creating a huge amount of extra debt for themselves.
So then on the flip of that,
yes,
where is the limit? This is none of this, and I'll probably caveat at the beginning that none of it is financial advice or taken to be even general in nature, but where, if the bank is approved,
yes.
let's say,
yes,
whatever you want,
where
is your limit? In terms of to what extent, where do we say that's the line in the sand we should hold for now and not continue to keep doubling down and leveraging?
And you're right, it's not financial advice or even general, because I work specifically case by case with my beautiful clients. That's why I chose to do this. It's nothing to do with how much money the bank wants to give them. Sometimes banks don't want to give people who actually can afford quite a bit, significant amounts of money. And then on the flip side, they sometimes give people who probably shouldn't be managing that amount of money with their responsibilities higher access. So before we're even looking at that, we have a bit of an idea of what sort of benchmark or borrowing capacity the client has, because I don't send my clients to banks. They go directly to investment loan brokers, independent ones. And that independent investment loan broker, which is just a longer name for a mortgage broker who specialises in property investing, will actually come back and say, this is a comfortable, and the important word is comfortable, borrowing capacity. Because they're looking at everything. They're looking at budgets, they're looking at expenditure, they're looking at lifestyle, they're looking at future goals. They're asking questions like, are you taking a holiday next year? Do you need a new car? All of those things are really important factors. So regardless of how much a lender says the client can borrow, it's literally about what they can manage and what they're comfortable with. So a bank could say you can borrow $1.5 million, but we're looking at $800,000 properties.
What's the definition of comfortable?
The definition of comfortable means that you emotionally and financially are at peace with that.
Because any investment that's used leverage will be invariably negatively geared, at least for a period of time.
Absolutely.
Which means it's a suck on cash flow.
Yes.
And that's where I presume it's not the comfortableness is not the decision to acquire, it's the decision to continue.
Yes, that's right. And that's why we have to look at all of those aspects and what might change. And I'm asking clients questions like, are you planning on having more children? That's not the kind of question you expect somebody in real estate to be asking, but it is irresponsible of me not to, because that word comfortable, that needs to be sustainable for the entire period of their portfolio. It can't be okay, we're okay with it for the first 12 months, but then if something changes, we've got an issue. And I would say, hypothetically, without doing my research, that is probably why there is much less double investment property owners in Australia than there are single, because they have the first property. All these things that we're discussing today, they don't think about. They buy the property and they realise that they're stuck and they can't manage.
Is there much of a difference between the mindset of, very broad brush question here, but between the male and the female in terms of decision making around this topic?
I think there are quite varied differences between different personality types. And then male and female comes after that. There are certain personality types who are going to be different at decision making. There's also different dynamics within certain couples and people who are independent that I notice differences. It really has to do with someone's level of experience and also their willingness to be open-minded and, I guess, take direction. There's no point hiring someone to help you if you know more than them or you think you know more than them.
I feel like your softness with your clients now and your ability to communicate and see the difference and the nuance is probably well crafted back in your Western Australian days with the drug and alcohol program.
without even realizing.
Mm.
I left real estate because I wanted to stop dealing with people's emotions. And now I'm working with people's emotions because no one comes to me and says, I want to invest so I have lots of money. There's always a goal and a dream, and there's family members they want to protect.
Oh, yeah, let's get into that.
Okay, let's do that.
So you go, yes, I want to make more money or I want to be more wealthy, but that's only probably half, or that's the mask, right? Because it's not the number in the bank balance, is what that represents. So what is financially freedom? What is the underlying, for your clients broadly, what's the take the mask off? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, for a start, I don't use the term financial freedom. It's a nice glossy one that gets bandied about the place, but it's about real numbers. It's about real experiences. Does this person have in their timeline that they'd like to go overseas to visit their family for a month every year? What we're talking about is choice. And that term financial freedom to me literally means that you have the freedom to make choices without having to check your bank account. That's that element of financial freedom where you're not constrained by your dollars. But it is very much about timelining and looking at what we're trying to achieve for the clients. Nobody comes and says, I want financial freedom. It's just something that people put on Facebook when they're trying to market to us. It's about, what does that look like to you? What does your life look like if you're not checking your bank account every time you go to spend or make a financial decision? And in order to create that, we need to know what that kind of looks like. So the questions that I'm asking are, who do you need to financially support? What are your goals? How much do you think that you'll be spending on holidays per year? How much will you be spending on education? What sort of, school fees, braces, all that sort of stuff. All those things are taken into account. So we work out sort of a dollar figure, and then we pad that out because we're talking 2026. We're not talking 36 or 46 when the value of the dollar might have changed and costs might have gone up. So we adjust it so that we can actually get a future figure that will be appropriate for present day. And that is where that reverse engineering to create the portfolio that will sustain that comes in. So the questions that we're asking are, how much do you think you need to imagine you have no mortgage? How much do you need each year to live the life that you want to live? If it's something that I think can be attainable and sustainable, great, let's work together. And if they're like, I'd like 11 Ferraris a year, they're not my client.
The lifestyle creep
Yes.
is present.
Yes.
And you say, well, client comes to you, never have invested in property, and they follow your blueprint, they follow your tutelage, and the idea is that it opens doors. They invest in one property, and they understand and do it diligently and well, and they invest in the next one and then the next one. And then it would be remarkable if that human kept their lifestyle in the same level as what it was when they first met you. But human nature suggests otherwise, and we enjoy comforts, and
we do.
It may not be the 11 Ferraris as the example, but almost the goals keep getting in front of us, whether or not that's designed to keep us keep us on the straight and narrow, and we're not. I know that there is the FIRE movement, the financially independent, retire early, but I guess for the most part, people go, oh, this is good. Now I will upgrade my home to make it a little bit more comfortable, or whether that's renovate or buy a new place. What's your view on that, I guess, as a concept?
So it's not just the lifestyle creep that needs to be watched. It's the coming from Western Australia and working with a lot of FIFO workers. What I saw was the more their income increased, the more their spending did. So they were earning maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year, but their spending had gone up $50,000 and $60,000. So because we like to reward ourselves. I did this great thing, I'm going to go spend money. And I'm all for rewarding myself and self-care and all that sort of stuff. I think it's wonderful. So part of what I created through Mia Casa Property Investment Strategy was the concierge service. And I don't valet park their cars, but apart from that, most of the other stuff is taken care of. And in that is education on budgeting, and in that is education on mindset and how to, we're looking at real goals here. We're looking at real projections, and we're also looking at real spending. So if a client this is their blueprint now, we're working over time. So I actually set up access to me over a period of time, not just for a number of properties. It's So they can ask me about any questions to do with anything. They've got access to me for as long as they're working with me, and we can work through those sorts of things. I've had clients that I've directed towards business coaches because we can see that there is a possibility for them to purchase property through their business, not through their own names or through a self-managed super fund or a different entity, but they're not quite sure how to get their business to that level, and so whatever is needed in order for them to get to that level is provided. But in terms of their long-term goals, that's something that we just keep on track and keep monitoring, because there is no point increasing your income and increasing your spending. It's pointless. You may as well just stay. A lot of these FIFO guys would go away for 3 weeks at a time, leave their families, come back for a week, spend all this money and go away again. They may as well stay home and be with their families and earn less money. It's a catch-22 in some ways.
The intention from the beginning has to be, I want to spend, if it does increase, I guess it's going to have to improve my life.
Well, we set up a way of streamlining things. They're speaking with the investment loan broker. They're speaking with the financial planner. We're setting up ways that this money is not just piling into a basket on their laps and they have to decide what to do with it. That's, tempting. It's all, the money is working hard and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So it's getting funneled into this particular account, or it's paying off that, or it's doing all those sorts of things. I have had people who've gone rogue. I had a client who had a bereavement, and his way of dealing with it was to renovate his bathroom, which was great, except he took the money out of his self-managed super fund while it was being created, waiting for the next property to settle. So, that was a process I had to help him navigate, and he's fine, and it was all okay. But, that sort of thing, I don't have control over that, but I have to make sure that when I'm working with somebody, that it is somebody that understands how important what we're doing is and is willing to follow guidance, and is also willing to be compliant, because we can't be, just doing what we feel like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking money out of your super fund.
And just buying yourself
your own
the
bathroom.
Taj Mahal bathroom. I mean, why not?
Sounds good. You're now operating, as we said, Mia Casa, and it's your own business.
Mm-hmm.
How are you managing business ownership, like working on it as well as in it and trying to have a life as well?
Well, I actually put myself in an even more extreme position last year when I took on a second business. What I realized is property is my focus. Property is what I'm really excited about, and the opportunity to help people keeps me wanting to be active and working in this business for a really long time. I had a hard time last year. I had one of my pets pass away 2 weeks before I was presenting at the Australian Women in Business conference. I didn't want to get on stage. I got on stage. I did it. But at that moment, we had a stand there for the other business, and then I was there representing my property business. And that weekend was a line in the sand for me, where I realised that property and how I can help people kept the fire burning for me internally, even when I didn't even want to be at the event. Whereas the other business, as wonderful as it was, it just didn't light me up. It wasn't changing people's lives and doing good the way that my property business does.
And then 2 weeks ago, the budget was handed down.
Indeed.
What are you seeing? And we've had an episode 2 weeks ago about unpacking that and what it means for property generally.
Yes.
But what are you seeing in the market now? And what should people do? Yeah. Be the safe haven for us.
Okay, I'm happy to be that. What I am seeing and hearing in the market is carnage. And there are a lot of people out there who have positions of influence who really should be using their position of influence to calm everybody, but they're not. They're using it as a marketing strategy to direct people to whatever they're doing. It's all about what your bias is and what your vested interest is. So there's a large amount of people who have a vested interest in something that the government is now saying they're changing. So that's causing a huge amount of uproar. But in general, what I'm finding is that because we're working with strategy, negative gearing is on the chopping block. If that's your only strategy, that's not a strategy. That's just a tax calculation that you're doing through property. There are other ways of getting that access. Holistically, looking at the investment is a much better option than, oh my goodness, this one part of the strategy has just been changed. Like that is a small, tiny piece of the pie, and there are other ways of doing it. It's about getting creative. It's not about, and not in a creative way like in the 80s, okay? The 80s creativity involved violin cases and trench coats. We're talking about legitimate, real, speak to the accountant, speak to the planner, speak to the property investment strategist. And maybe we pivot, but maybe we don't. Because a lot of my clients own businesses. There are some aspects of investing that haven't been changed. Self-managed super stays the same. And so obviously all my clients who've already bought established property, they're all fine. Anybody that bought it after the 12th, not so much. But as I said, if that's your only strategy is the tax deductions, you're in the wrong investment.
So the people that have bought before, held before, or had it before the 12th, the general position in your mind is to hold. And I guess the follow-up question to that is also in the property market, because you don't have a ticker to see when do you decide to sell down or sell and buy something else?
We're looking annually. Sometimes we're looking 6 monthly. Sometimes I've got things that pop into my inbox and I think, oh, I know exactly who this is right for. And then I go and have a chat to them about it. So it's actually a living, breathing process. It's not just, right, we've got the property, catch you in a year's time. It is very much about keeping the finger on the pulse and working with the client through the whole process and making those decisions. And sometimes they don't know. They come to me thinking they need another property. And when I start examining the portfolio, what we realize is that actually they need to change what they've already got and that before adding. So it's always a case-by-case basis. And people who can just give general advice on social media or whatever, they're not property strategists, they're marketing strategists, and they're just funneling people towards their business. Because my personal belief and opinion is that I can't sit here with you and just give general advice on what I would do now that this has changed or that's changed. And because it really depends on the person who I'm speaking to's personal situation. What might make sense for you might not make sense for somebody else. And you might be in very similar situations but have very different. Yeah.
I get that.
I'm sorry that that's not like a, golden ticket answer.
No, but it just shows to me how bespoke and how professional you look at it and see it as, and I like the idea that it's a moving beast.
It certainly is. It's a huge responsibility and a massive honour to be part of these people's processes and lives, and I take it very seriously. And that's why, I have these phone calls sometimes. People go, so if I was looking, just sort of, I know you can't tell me, but just give me a general area. And I go,
East Coast of Australia.
That's exactly right. Have you heard of Australia?
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's taken a bit to get us in the room, so I appreciate that as well. Before you go, quick fire questions. What does success mean to you personally?
For me personally, success means choice. It's not an emotion. It is a structure, and it allows me to make decisions based on my hard work without having to second guess them.
What does happiness mean to you? Yeah.
Is the enjoyment that I get out of those choices. It's the ability to get up in the morning, make a cup of tea and watch the mountain outside my house instead of having to check emails and rush and do all those sorts of things. So that's the feeling that I'm getting because of all the hard work that I've done. So I believe that there is a correlation between your happiness and success, but I think that they're two different entities.
What does your normal morning routine look like?
My normal morning routine, I would love to say 4 a.m. and green juice, but that would be a lie. What I found is that I feel really good if I exercise in the morning first, and also then it's out of the way, so I don't have to 3 o'clock, oh my goodness, I need to do this. So I gave up, I'm very boring these days, I gave up coffee, I gave up alcohol. I'm sorry.
Coffee.
I'm sorry. Oh. I know I shouldn't come in here and swear. I still have fun. But,
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's right. It was just one of those things. I just stopped drinking them and then didn't pick them up again.
Didn't miss them.
I didn't miss them and I was okay. And so my morning routine involves exercise. It involves standing on the ground. It's very simple things, just grounding. I follow a protocol, or not a protocol, it makes me sound very fancy. I have some amazing friends who actually live on the coast, James Yates and Chantel Dazel, and they run a company where they do a lot of stuff about retreats and self-care, and James's whole concept is 1% better every day.
Yeah.
And so that's what I focus on. I don't focus on making huge life changes. I get up in the morning and make sure I drink water first. I make sure I'm doing the small things that set me up for the day. I don't turn my phone on early. I don't do any of those things. I don't even have a TV anymore. It's not that I don't like technology. I just don't like useless technology.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different every morning, but there's a few non-negotiables, and they're the grounding and the exercise and the phone off.
What would be one piece of advice that you'd give the world? If you could sum it up into one.
Stop worrying about what other people think of you.
I love that.
Stop worrying about what other people think of you. That is the biggest gift that I can give.
And then finally, who is someone that you would know that'd be a great guest for the show, you think?
I think James would be a great guest for the show. He has such a passion about helping people. He goes above and beyond. And I did think about this because you asked me about this before, but there is a record label on the Sunshine Coast called Frisson Records. Frisson is like the goosebumps that you get when you hear music.
Okay.
It's a Sunshine Coast label. The owner was a surfboard shaper who's grown up on the sunny coast and puts his heart and soul into bringing music. His name is Mark Pridmore, and I think he would be a great guest for you also.
That's a great shout. Mia Shilkin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure.
It was awesome. That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're standing barefoot outside, turn to the person next to you, tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. A huge thank you to Mia for sharing her honest journey through business, property, and personal growth. If today's conversation inspired you, please subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. It really helps us grow and keeps bringing these conversations to life. Until next time, peace.